What's your favorite scary movie?
Hey friends, so it's been quite a long time. I've done, random videos here or there, but nothing really too big or important. Most of you know that's because of the fact that I am working for Joe Blow Horror, so most of my videos just go up there. Yeah, so if you're interested in that, then check that out. But otherwise, we're gonna do things a little differently because I really want to utilize this channel more. And again, if you've been around here, you'll know that I don't really want to edit for this channel much, just because obviously I have to edit for my day job. So why would I want to then edit when it's some fun thing like this? So instead, after much planning, because I pretty much have attempted to do this many times, and now it's finally happening. So I have my computer set up, I have everything all ready to go, and I should be able to actually run through this a little better than I had in the past. I've abandoned this many times before, but I'm hoping to be able to get back into this because I want to go through all the different horror franchises and do some ranking. And the first one up is the franchise that had the most recent entry in their series. Well, I mean, technically, I guess if we count the new Texas Chainsaw Massacre, then that would probably be it. But I think I still have one more to watch in that series. Still gotta hunt down Leatherface, like the new Leatherface, not the old Leatherface. But yeah, otherwise, that might be what I end up doing next. But either way, today you saw the video, you saw the name of the video. They were doing Scream. I love this series. I don't think between Halloween, Nightmare on Elm Street, Friday the 13th, those are the classics, but the meta influence of Scream cannot be understated, especially on me as a person, because I wrote a Scream ripoff in middle school. Is that elementary? No, middle school. So all I've ever wanted is to make a Scream type film, book, whatever, some kind of entertainment medium that is like Scream. To the point that nowadays, everything has some kind of meta element in it. It was one of those things when the new Scream came out where it's like, ooh, well, how can this really carve out an identity for itself when Scream is just being meta is just a regular part of horror films nowadays. It's not a niche. That is just another aspect. So the fact that I think they pulled it off, but I mean, that's a story for another time, I guess. Wait, did I review Scream on this channel? No, I didn't. I recorded a review for this channel that then I did not put up because I didn't have time to edit it. So this will kind of serve as that as well. But we need to get into these because I'm a big fan, big fan of this series. And obviously there are 5 films in the series right now. They are filming a 6th one this summer. So maybe this wasn't a great idea to do this ranking system because then it's going to be obsolete in no time. Either way, we're doing this. So first one up, I think that everyone and their mother is aware of this one. Scream 3. I mean, Scream 3 is just, but you could see right there, even it's not, I still gave it 3 stars. I still enjoy Scream 3. It is not a bad film. It's just not great. It has a lot of really poorly done elements, and as much as I really wish that they had done the original idea, because for those that are unaware, check out my what the fuck happened to this unmade horror film on Joe Blow. We actually talk about a alternate version of Scream 3. It's essentially what Scream 3 would have been had Kevin Williamson actually had time to write it. It's a much more interesting film, and yeah, check out that video. It's really interesting to see. I don't think it would have been a particularly particularly great film regardless. I think that the third film in a franchise just always really struggles to manage to do what it needs to. And I mean, evidence is pretty much everywhere. I mean, and technically Halloween Ends is kind of the third one in the new David Gordon Green trilogy. So I don't have much faith in that one not being anything but terrible. But Scream 3 it doesn't hit all the elements that it should. And one thing that the writer Aaron Kruger even mentioned, that in the behind the scenes stuff, where he said that he couldn't really figure out the characters' voices. And as soon as hearing that, a lot of stuff made sense, and as to why something just feels off about this movie. And that's just because the characters don't have their voices. They don't feel like the same people. Dewey and Gale kind of feel more like Courtney Cox and David Arquette versus Dewey and Gale. And so that's really weak. And then obviously Roman being the killer is just the weakest of the weak. There's really not anything that... It's just embarrassing how they even did that. It did not work in any way whatsoever. Not unexpected, but just really disappointing. So you can see it there. 3 stars or 6 out of 10. I usually go 10 out of 10 rating. Speaking of which, I'm now a critic for Joe Blow. So I pretty much just review crappy horror films right now. It's been pretty awesome to do. I really like the idea of just like forcing yourself to watch something that then you have to like critique, because there's a lot of times, especially with newer horror, where I make it like 10 minutes in and then I'm just like, I'm not feeling this. Cut it off. But then this kind of forces me to watch it. Which, by the way, check out Choose or Die if you haven't. A lot of people hate that movie. I don't understand the hate. I think like 5 years from now, people are going to actually really enjoy it. Back to what I was talking about. Next one up on the list, because I mean, this is, again, I think that this list is super generic, because I think that I'm pretty standard with what I like. Scream 2. You can see quite the jump up. I'm immediately into 4 stars, which... like seeing that rating right now, I'm like, I don't think I would give it 4 stars. I can actually change that. I would say it's a 3.5 star movie. It has its faults. It absolutely has its faults. It just doesn't come together nearly as clean as the first one. But I mean, when you realize too that this released less than a year after the first one came out, like that's insane. Especially when you then find out all the crazy behind the scenes, and then you're like, so the aftermath of Scream, pre-production, production, and post-production of Scream 2, all in less than a year. Like, that's insane. Straight up insane. Feel very, very bad for Wes Craven and Kevin Williamson for even having to be under that schedule, because that is rough. Yeah, the Scream 2, I really love the twist. I think that the 2 killer thing is... great. It just works really well. It's something that I wish that they hadn't abandoned in the third film, because it just kind of, there's a lot of unbelievability that comes in when you don't have 2 killers. So glad they didn't go with some of the false endings. Like, I would not have liked what Jerry O'Connell, or what's her name, her Sydney's roommate. These are things that I'm glad that were just red herrings, because I would just have hated that. I don't really have that much to say about Scream 2. I don't know what it is about this movie. It's not my favorite. I mean, I like it. I definitely like it. But with how much, I think that I'm very defensive regarding this film, because I see a lot of people put it behind the original Scream, like in terms of it's their number 2. I've never understood that. I think the next 2 that I'm going to talk about are leagues above it. But so I think the fact that then it is held up on this pedestal, and all I can do is really see the flaws, which aren't super prevalent, but they are prevalent enough that then I'm like, is it like so much? But I mean, I don't care. Enjoy it. It's better than 3. Yeah, not a huge surprise. Next up, Scream 4. I think that Scream 4, 4 stars. That makes more sense. Scream 4 is, I think, the best return to the series' roots. And not in the way of like just recreating the first film. I mean in the way of dissecting a element of horror. That's where Scream is at its best. And that's why I think 2 and 3 are weaker. 2 less so, because obviously there's a lot to be said about sequels. But in regards to like what can be said about the third in a film, like in a film series, there's just not. It's, I don't know, it's unnecessary. Versus this is more dealing with the reboot craze and, you know, paying respect to the originals, and, you know, it's just a much more interesting concept than just simply, oh, this needs to be bigger, better, badder. It actually has a little psychological turmoil going on, and a little, I really like the final twist with Jill. I've said this on the channel before. I will say it to anyone that will listen. I wish that they had ended it just a little bit earlier. End it with Jill smiling up at the cameras as they're taking photos. And then you can do this whole crazy twist, and then the next scene can be the beginning of the next film. I don't care if you renege on all that. I thought that they should have done a little more with that, because they kind of go back on it like immediately. It's like big shock moment, and then they just kind of turn around and like, eh. But again, it's just really good. And another thing too is how violent this movie is. This movie is a lot more violent than I had remembered. The last time I watched it, I was like, holy hell. Especially that one, the closet kill. Like, he just goes to town. And I know that they had to cut that up for like to get an R rating, so I am curious as to if they were to ever release an uncut version, because I remember they released an uncut version of Scream, which extended the Drew Barrymore death a bit, but they haven't really done that for any of the other ones. I'd be curious to see what they do there, because I don't know. I'd be curious just to see what else is there. Now, next up, I think everyone at this point knows, because everyone's number one is the same. So, Scream 2022, that is. I was quite annoyed with the naming conventions of this when it was first announced, but now I quite enjoy it. Like, a lot. I really enjoy that they do the silly naming, how they do it, because they kind of make a joke about it even in the film, and it just makes sense. And like I was saying before with Scream 4, of how this actually really has something to say about the horror genre. And the big thing that this has to say is all about requels. And given how much, I think the timing could not have been better, because requels they're so in vogue, but they're also like, people are sick of them. Every time something gets announced where it's like, oh, this thing coming back after 20 years, we're pretty much past the eye roll stage. So because of that, this one's able to play with it, have some fun with it. There's a little more humor at play, because it knows the audience's timidity regarding this new horror trope that has been established. Spoilers, because I would assume that you understand that this is spoilers, but some people I think do these rankings and then they don't spoil stuff. But I would assume that you understand at this point that, yeah, I'm going to spoil stuff. The whole ending with Jack Quaid and, oh, I can't remember what her name is, his accomplice in it. I really like that, because that is literally what we get to deal with constantly. And I do it myself. So, I mean, this is also a criticism against me. We have this certain idea of what this movie is supposed to be in our eyes. And so the fact that then it's not just causes all of these problems just internally. We're like, oh, this isn't what I wanted. Oh, you're ruining my ending. This is how it should have been. Which, again, I have been guilty of this in the past. I think we as human beings just can always be like that when we're passionate about something. Doesn't excuse it. Like, it's such a shitty thing to do. let artists create art. That's the whole point. But then, I mean, all art needs to be criticized, so doesn't mean you're not allowed to have an opinion on these things. Absolutely have an opinion. I think it's just silly to dislike something just because, like, oh, I don't agree with it. I don't know. Yeah, I really liked a lot of elements of this film. I know that some people aren't a fan of Dewey getting offed, but I don't know. I think it really works. I'm really glad that they needed to raise the stakes and off a legacy character, and Dewey has almost died several times. He was originally supposed to die in the first and I believe the second, or did they just tease it in the second? Can't remember. And so the fact that then they're able to do that, they're killing off a character that Wes was technically already okay with killing. So it kind of is something where it's like, oh, well, this is a legacy character that we know Wes would be okay with killing. Just, I don't know. I like that. And the to Wes toast, I didn't really notice it the first time that I was in theater. Well, like, saw it in theaters, but then obviously seeing it, while reading up on it after the fact, where I'm like, oh, that's awesome. Very cool that they did a little toast to him. But yeah, really, really enjoyed that movie. Jenna Ortega is probably my favorite aspect of it, and I think that she is probably the best new Scream character that we've had. I'm very, very, very much a massive fan. Let's go on to Scream. What really needs to be said about this film that hasn't already been said? Also, that's a 5-star. I don't know why I had it 4.5 stars. Probably whenever I inputted this, I was feeling very high and mighty. But Scream is one of my favorite, not just horror films, but films of all time. I watch it multiple times a year. I probably will watch it multiple times a year till the day I die. I think the final act is one of the greatest final acts ever put on celluloid. I don't know, there's a lot of elements. Pretty much everything about this film has shaped me as a creative type, as a lover of horror, as just, I don't know, someone that really enjoys the genre. So I cannot say enough good things about the original Scream. Fantastic, amazing, it's incredible. Everything that needs to be said about Scream has already been said about Scream. So just know that I really, really love it. And I've been talking for 20 minutes at this point, so I think that's enough. I think as a first video back, 20 minutes is more than good enough. Plus, I mean, I think I did a little better with this one than the Halloween one. The Halloween one, I was very tired and it was very low energy. Very low energy. Not to say that I'm just a low energy person in general. I try and wait to record these until I have a little more energy, but it just doesn't always work out that way. But yeah, that's really all. I hope that you guys are having a wonderful, what is this year, 2022? Hope you're having a wonderful 2022. Hopefully you're keeping up with the horror genre. And keep up with Joe Blow Horror Originals, because that's where I'm producing a bunch of content. We have a lot of fun over there. And we should have some pretty cool things on the horizon. So keep an eye out for that. And yeah, that's really all. Take it easy.